So I'd like to start reading a few of the haiku that were in that issue by Takayanagi Jushi. Takayanagi is the last name. Takayanagi was very unusual as a haikuist in that he began writing haiku in 4 lines or 3 lines or odd shapes like concrete poetry and so on. In Japanese, a haiku is always 1 line. The 3-line thing in English was an invention to try to make it look more like English poetry. But so we're going from the normal 1 line to 4 lines and doing things probably more associated with Western poetry, which actually still really freaks out a lot of haikuists. They're very, very conservative. So I'll read a few of these. And this is from a work called The Earldom. Fleeing from the palace, the heavy water wheels, the valley's stone mill. Thick with moss, the valleys, the graveyards, napping water wheel. The railway train, the rainbow, the clouds, the tax officer overlooking the valley. On the mountain ranges, creases, listening closely, ears covered. This is like, Zhukovsky-esque haiku. Although in Japanese this looks more like a mountain range, it's kind of difficult to translate some of these shapes exactly if you're changing from vertical to horizontal. This is going down. While we're reading horizontally going down, it would be reading vertically and going right to left. And another shape. Here's the. It's difficult to see. We need a projector here. Votive candles at a mass held deep in the night, in the forest, flesh of moths burn in the flames. And then my favorite, it's difficult to tell the shape here. This is actually in the shape of a manji. It's the ancient Hindu symbol which is used in Buddhism, which means temple. Deep in the forest of night, far into the snow, bright red of the temple cross. I'll read one more, and get on something else. We'll try another shape like this. Blossoming, burning, ash, vortex, ring of atoll, arose. And then I'd like to switch over to going from the short to the long, something more recent of my own series of, it's a long prose poem series. I don't like to use the word prose poem, but because it's really a mixture of all kinds of things. This is called Object States. The border passes through the interior like an invisible door. Finally, I found the book, written in another language. I know this man, I said to myself when I saw the words for north and island. That was another country, and we were different people. The pink lanterns lined the river, demarking a city within a city. The importance of boundaries. The hand was found in a dream. The man without a face. I come to a bend in the road now, and the stone steps leading upward. I read carefully the strange characters inscribed on the wall. The trial itself is transformed, little by little, into the sentence. But that was the last time, or was it autumn, the north winds carrying away the falling leaves as if I am looking for a word to put upon, bring to bear, take out, or turn over. This entrance was meant solely for you, the sign reads. The moment the historical index becomes legible, that this is an impossible task. How to see in obscurity, mirror arrangement, reticle bearing point, to recast the very notion of text, the poet screaming inside a fish. The language of propositions relating to finite objects. This is the door, the table, the shoe, the metallic pedestal upon which the many indescribable objects linked to the system are temporarily placed. How one comes to terms with space. There are figures that rise up. What emanates from the figure? Nameless things in progress. Now past all those images. What happens to the pages? A man walking in a movie, adrift in time and space. I walk across the lawn. The wet paper adheres to the sidewalk. A close reading. The excess of the subject. The plane from which everything would be made, placing the mask before us. The immense lesson of its images. The nude figures turn inward. She too is awake. Space draws things to itself, its surfaces, to which the sculpted forms, to carry that life through, the hidden self. Yet the relation is to become one which subsists. I know the woman in the painting, a figure from my imagined past. Along the corridors of the body, dried flower arrangements and small collectibles are placed. I have her letter, the strange characters nearly illegible. They lie forgotten in an empty room, filled with books and reminders of forgotten pasts. There is this moment, this image of light, the struggle with the materials. And there is a door through the man's shadow, while beside him the dead child sleeps. It is hard to get close to the painting. There are recurrent themes, but I don't feel part of the story. The idea of proportion, the object, its specific weight, and how the image is dismantled in the moment of its constitution. A fault line runs through the egg's exterior. Self is grammatical formality, the placeholder, a return to the miniature forms, expanded consonants. In the painting, a man stands up. The fabulous bouquet of rotten fruit expands until it meets the rays of the awful sun. Everything dissolves. The failure of desire. The nonchalant appearance of the dog in the foreground. Why are the eggs colored that way? There are in it words, nothing spoken, to recollect, with the past before you, the self and its double, always something inaccessible, sealed up like the mildly bitter fruit of the walnut. We could imagine the whole world if only for a moment, a shape reduced to its abbreviation. We can remember it as a kind of code. As one steps into the fading light, there is a time a sound comes through, a window or some kind of opening, to insist as a subject, a kind of vegetable or that light, substance which resists description. For a brief moment, it was possible to perceive something. Suppose the body translates, without rotation, parallel to a principal translational axis of resistance. A text which is first revealed as erased or disfigured, to confront interpretation. That space is in a certain sense independent, to experience more precisely the inner structure, the art or the forbearance of speaking together in conversation. But we are not at home here. To disassemble the machine, pulling the fiber through the access hole. We understand the speech act when we know the reason, or the speaker is a known quantity. The speaker is insulted or has a gravelly voice. The table-like understanding keeps for itself the necessity, takes this unfolding back into itself, the concrete shape in moving. When I was a child, everyone wore masks to the autumn festival. They became other people by wearing those masks, but there was never a mask suitable for me. The city speaks. Language is a city. The arch and the three-part columns consisting of a base, shaft, and capital that comprise the portal. The series of rooms lining the corridor. Winter Street, where it joins with the main thoroughfare running diagonally to the city center. The landscape reappears here. They remove their disguises, a face weathered and creased by years of imprisonment and exile, infinite openings and closings, the folding under. I see the shapes in the painting, but I don't know the way in. A river flows through the body, forming a geology of the unimagined. The mask's tears are like crystal, seeing past the future. In the refracted light, the letters appear. But what meanings do they come to open the breach in history? The city is theater. I don't know if my time's up yet, is it? That must be. Figurations of the body, internal tension of the object in the mind of God. History scars the surface of the painting. In the hall of the wordless, we come to the absent presence of memory. I poke out a fish's eye with my finger. In autumn, I am bitten by insects. In every house, a person sits, unable to meet the passion of the demon. Inside the egg, a storm approaches. The candidate is a cipher. Everything changes in a moment. The plot of potential energy is a function of displacement. Positional relationships, the slope of the table, the angle of repose. Industry also becomes a cipher, a memory. The empty shadows hard at work in the factory, hammering out the complex shapes in metal. An event that never reaches its completed form. Pain and hunger of the body, parts that are erased. The map supplied the coordinates of organizing space, the gateway, sound invading the machine forest, dismantling the egg. I see the shadow line across the horizon. I see the texture of future and past fading into the background. Everything escapes me, even there where it appears in itself, yet I lack a word to name it. Deep in the mirror, the shapes decompose. Through the liquid mass of melting corners, parts of a face emerge, break apart, and recombine. This is my face, removed from the system, neither return nor disregard, interrupting or tearing history itself apart. There's a momentum that's required, movement away from the center. When the switch is turned on, the arm is retracted. There's not much space left, but then the light spills in. The body's excess, its impingement on the boundaries of its confinement. The book of disorder. Sky unexceptional but warm and slightly discolored, craves desserts like childhood memories. Inside an anthole, a conspiracy is hatched. In another time, it is time itself which presses imperceptibly on the border. A day which is merely a symptom. Things generate of themselves. The colors are dismantled in the clouds, a protective cover over the field or outlet. The loneliness of the world. It is night, darkness falling earlier this time of year. I find the letter K offensive, and yet I use it always. The first appearance of the young deer that autumn afternoon, the words caught in my throat. The horror in the merely schematic. diagramming the most inaccessible corners of the system. In folds of advanced synthetic materials, the great highways and interconnects forever invisible to us. The appearance of yet another doomsday prediction is unsurprising.